News Radio is reporting the car is somewhere by Disneyland.
On June 17, 1994, 95 million people were watching a live car chase on national TV. The police were chasing a white SUV on the LA freeway. What was strange about this chase was that the getaway car was a powerful off-road SUV, but the driver was driving incredibly slow, just 35 miles an hour. The wanted man in the car had been charged with 2 murders just days prior and was now on the run. What's interesting for us? He was driving a 1993 Ford Bronco. The Bronco gained sudden popularity because of the chase. But despite that, 2 years later, Ford would discontinue producing the Bronco. Some think it was because of the crazy incident and the bad publicity it caused. But it was something bigger than that. Stay tuned to find out. Many consumer reports have stated that a single pothole can badly damage a Tesla. Recently, Tesla announced it'll update their autopilot system. Will this address the problem of hitting potholes? Why is Elon Musk, who's determined to send people to Mars, sounding more and more like Henry Ford, who lived more than 75 years ago? Can this be a good thing? And stick around for the fantastical, unusual story of a person who raced around the world on a bike. That was 125 years ago, even before we had reality TV shows or The Amazing Race. By the way, if you like my videos, please subscribe to my channel so you won't miss any future videos. Thanks for your support, and now back to our story. Ford will be celebrating their 55th anniversary of the iconic Bronco this year, bringing back the old school vibes. But it'll have the same power and technology of today's modern cars. So the 2021 model will have the same off-road strength that people love. But why did Ford stop making Broncos in 1996? Ford noticed a decline in Bronco sales between the years 1994 to 1996. It gained notoriety because of the O.J. Simpson incident, but despite the publicity, it lost popularity due to a different reason. In the mid-90s, people were interested in 4-door SUVs. At the time, the Bronco came as a 2-door, 2-row SUV. The Bronco was the first sports utility vehicle marketed by Ford. Initially, it was a compact design, competing against the Jeep CJ5 and International Harvester Scout, which were popular at the time. When the Bronco's capacity and design stopped meeting changing consumer needs, Ford discontinued the Bronco. They replaced it with the new 4-door Ford Expedition and the larger Ford Explorer. After a 25-year hiatus, Ford reintroduced the Bronco with the 2021 model. It comes with both 2-door and 4-door versions. It can now be categorized as a mid-sized competitor to the Jeep Wrangler. In addition to the 2 versions, they also introduced a compact crossover SUV version, the Bronco Sport. Jeep has always been Ford's competitor when it comes to off-road SUVs, so now Bronco is back in the competition. Ford decided to stop using V8 engines for Bronco. Some people might fear it'll lack power, but on the contrary, Ford claims that their 4- and 6-cylinder engines with twin turbochargers will be just as powerful as a classic 8-cylinder. Most people nowadays don't want a big gas guzzler, unless you love that deep V8 rumble. The new Bronco has a smaller and more fuel-efficient engine that can still pump out a whole lot of power and speed. It's a good option and better for your pocket. How much more fuel efficient will this engine be? The corporate average fuel economy standards are regulations in the United States to improve the average fuel economy of cars, light trucks, vans, and SUVs. The fuel economy is expressed in miles per US gallon. Each year, the requirement increases, demanding more economic vehicles. Ford is keeping their 2021 Bronco within the requirements by using a V6 twin turbocharged engine. Having a V8 would not be able to meet these requirements and give enough mileage on the gallon that the regulation requires. As a comparison, look at V8 engine in the 2010 F-150 versus the twin-turbo V6 engine in the 2012 F-150. The 2010 F-150 with the 5.4-liter V8 engine got 14 miles in the city and 18 miles on the highway, but it just barely met the minimum EPA rating. On the other hand, the 2012 model with 3.5-liter twin-turbo V6 got 16 miles in the city and 21 miles in the highway. It's a bit of an increase in EPA ratings. It may not seem much in comparison, but it adds up over time and can make a huge difference. This may be another reason why Ford decided to end the V8 era for the Bronco. It might turn away some Bronco fans, but it's clear the change is for the better. But maybe you're still wondering, how can it be just as powerful, especially for off-roading experience that you want to have? In comparison, the 96 Bronco Eddie Bauer model with a 5.8-liter V8 engine pumped out 205 horsepower and 270 pound-feet of torque. But the 2021 Bronco with the turbocharged 2.3-liter four-cylinder produces 270 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque. The twin-turbo 2.7-liter V6 engine puts out 310 horsepower and 400 pound-feet of torque. So the modern i4 and V6 engines with turbochargers have more punch than the classic V8 because the turbochargers help pump more air into the combustion chamber and produce more power. So there's really no need for the huge V8 engine in the Bronco. This new version packs a big punch. Now let's talk about a car that's eco-friendly but has some challenges with its autopilot system. That's Tesla. According to Green Car Report's annual reliability survey of 500,000 cars from 2000 to 2018, this is the second time the Tesla Model S has been dropped off the Consumer Report's recommended list. The survey focuses on issues that owners have had in the past 12 months, and each car's model ratings changes based on cumulative data. Overall, the Tesla Model S still scores high in other areas, but problems with the suspension system is the reason that Tesla's reliability rating dropped. Tesla announced an update to its suspension system to improve performance, handling, and ride comfort. It's a digital upgrade they'll be pushing through. The upgrade will include a user-controlled ability to adjust ride height and damping set to specific geographic areas. This is useful, for example, if your driveway requires you to raise your car's height or if you live on a dirt road. You set the suspension once, and then the car will automatically adjust every time you're within the geographic area. Tesla is simplifying the suspension control logic to support temporary and permanent height changes. So when ride height is manually adjusted to a high or very high setting, the car will automatically lower after you drive a short distance. For snow or off-road conditions, if you select the option Keep, you can keep the height higher until you reach a maximum speed. Tesla is also updating their autopilot system. Since the autopilot system keeps the car within lanes and prevents it from hitting other cars, many people assume that it can also sense other obstacles on the road. But Tesla owners have been reporting that it caused horrible damages after their Teslas hit potholes when driving in autopilot mode. That's one of the reasons why Tesla announced a renewed focus to improve their autopilot system in order to address potholes. They're rewriting the code so that the cars autonomously react by slowing down or navigating around the potholes. Tesla continues to develop an ever more in-depth 3D labeling system for their autopilot AI. Eventually, it'll allow Teslas to create micromaps of roads, created from data collected by its fleet and shared with fellow Tesla owners on a given road. The 3D labeling system uses 8 cameras to capture raw images. It then detects and identifies objects, estimates depth, and then outputs the road layout with 3D objects. The system will predict navigation, plan out the trajectory, and improve overall driving behavior. Most of us grew up imagining a time of advanced AI and autonomy. The world now awaits for reality to catch up with sci-fi. Elon Musk, Henry Ford. These names bring to mind men who changed the car industry. The Ford Model T gave people affordable mobility and changed people's lifestyles. Tesla's eco-friendly smart cars drive you as you relax in the car. What similarities do these two men have? Henry Ford's main goal was to make simple and affordable cars, mass-produce them with less staff to sell more cars in a shorter amount of time. Efficiency was his target. He was one of the first to bring moving assembly lines into car manufacturing and change the industry. Using affordable materials and minimizing production times resulted in strong profits for Ford and plenty of cars for the working class. How is Elon Musk similar to Henry Ford? And what are Elon's goals toward new engineering technology? Well, here are 3 things Elon is doing right now. First, Tesla is developing a new proprietary computer chip that will change the idea of transportation in the near future. Enabling full self-driving cars used to be a dream, but now it's becoming a reality. It'll change people's lifestyles, just as Henry Ford impacted the entire generation in his time. Secondly, Elon is introducing a revolutionary way of assembling cars using a mega aluminum casting for the entire rear of the Tesla. This reduces cost and weight compared to the traditional method where separate parts were welded together. This method results in better quality, less weight, and faster production. The method itself differs from Henry Ford's, but the same principles resonate. A third thing Elon is bringing to the table is the invention of a new aluminum alloy. This new material will be high quality and lightweight. These are some remarkable upgrades that will change many people's view of the car industry. Both Henry Ford and Elon Musk went against tradition and had innovative approaches to production. They understood that success requires thinking outside the box, even if it might look unorthodox to the public. And now let's switch gears to talk about another form of travel and a bizarre race around the world. Two men walk into a bar. Okay, this isn't a bar joke, but it's the legend behind an otherwise true story. Two men walk into a bar. One bets $20,000 that a woman can't bike as far as a man. A woman jumps into the conversation and says she can prove them wrong. The wager is accepted. If she succeeds, they'll give her $10,000. That's about $260,000 in today's value. To win the prize, she must bike around the entire globe in 15 months and raise $5,000 on the way, equivalent to $130,000 today. This is the fanciful legend that inspired the first woman to race around the world on a bike. It's the mid-1890s, way before we had reality TV shows or The Amazing Race. And this is Annie Kopczowski. She's a young mother of 3 kids, and she and her husband struggle to make ends meet. And now she's accepted a crazy challenge to leave the family behind and circumbike the world. Annie is the most unlikely candidate. First, she has a Jewish name at a time when many people are anti-Semitic. She also lacks biking experience. In fact, she's only ridden a bike just a few days before the trip starts. Annie is also petite, just 5'3" and weighs 100 pounds. Not exactly the poster image of a strong person. Plus, she's married with young children. The enterprise gets highly publicized. A bike maker, Pope Manufacturing, supplies its Columbia bike to Annie. It's a metal bike and weighs 42 pounds, nearly half her own weight. Annie enters a contract with Londonderry Lithia Springwater Company. Under the terms, she needs to go by the name Annie Londonderry and attach a plate with the company logo on her bike for the duration of the race. In exchange for the advertising service, she gets paid $100 flat. That's about $3,000 in today's value for a 15-month ad space. So you can say the water company got a really good deal. It's June 27, 1894, 11 o'clock in the morning in Boston. Annie sets off for Chicago wearing a heavy long skirt and high collar shirt. She's really eager to start. All she has on her is a change of clothes and a pearl-handled pistol. With good weather and good roads, she estimates averaging between 8 to 10 miles a day. 3 months later, Annie arrives in Chicago. She's lost 20 pounds. Annie's exhausted, ready to give up and abandon the adventure. Who wouldn't if you had only a heavy low-speed bike and a long curtain of a dress? Plus, winter is coming and she realizes she won't be able to cross the mountains to San Francisco. But then Annie remembers the contract doesn't forbid other forms of transportation, which is quite logical considering she has to cross several continents. She realizes she's gone the wrong direction. She needs to go eastbound. The contract also didn't specify what kind of clothes she needed to wear. Annie realizes that changing her wardrobe will really simplify her task. Disregarding public norm, she kicks off her high-heel shoes and puts on boots with rubber soles. She exchanges her long, heavy, uncomfortable dress for a loose shirt and bloomers, which are pretty much like pants. Later, she'll eventually replace those with a man's riding suit. Annie also meets with Sterling Cycle Works in Chicago. The company offers to sponsor her trip. They give her an ivory and gold men's road bike with the name Sterling painted on the frame. This bike is 20 pounds lighter than her Columbia, but it has a single gear, no freewheel mechanisms, nor brakes. But with the lighter bike, comfier clothes, now her goal looks much more attainable. And now she heads east to New York City. From New York, she gets on a boat and heads for France. Annie is a gifted storyteller, self-promoter, and saleswoman. She takes advantage of that during her travels. She makes public appearances and gives lectures where she shares fanciful stories of her adventures, often exaggerating her exploits. But this enthralls the media and it boosts her popularity. In France, she describes herself as an orphan, wealthy heiress, Harvard medical student, and niece of a U.S. senator. The French women enjoy her lectures. They even buy autographed photographs and souvenir pins. But her main source of income is advertising. She sells ad space on her bike and her person, hanging posters, banners, ribbons, flags, all of which promote different products from dairy to perfumes. By the time her trip is done, she'll have more than 50 ads on her bike. She probably looks like a moving billboard. Good thing she switched for a lighter bike. Annie bikes from Paris to Marseille. From Marseille, she gets on a ship and sails through the Suez Canal. The contract didn't mandate a minimum cycling distance, so she sails from city to city, completing day trips at each stop on the way. She visits many places like Alexandria, Colombo, Singapore, Saigon, Hong Kong, Shanghai, Nagasaki, and Kobe. To prove her visits, Annie is required to present herself at each U.S. consulate. Later, she would also claim that she had visited Korea and Siberia, but she didn't have documentation to show it. It's now March. Annie sails from Yokohama to San Francisco. She bikes from LA through Arizona and New Mexico to El Paso. At one point, she almost gets killed by a runaway horse and wagon, and she suffers some injuries. At the time, the Southern Pacific Railway offers benefits for cyclists traveling across Southern California and Arizona. Annie takes advantage of it. She follows service roads made of hard-packed dirt and stops for shelters for train crews where she can get a meal and a bath. Later, people would presume she rode the train across parts of the desert. She would later claim, though, that she declined rides from passing train crews. While in the US, she continues her self-promotion and tall tales like hunting Bengal tigers in India and getting sent to a Japanese prison with a bullet wound. She also gives cycling demonstrations, sells promotional photographs of herself, souvenir pins, and autographs. In Iowa, she breaks her wrist when she crashes into a group of pigs. She's forced to wear a cast for the remainder of the trip. Now is September 12, 1895. Annie arrives in Chicago. She's come back to Chicago full circle, 12 days less than a year. She then returns to Boston on September 24th, 3 days short of the 15-month deadline. Now, remember, part of the contract mandated that she raise $5,000 along the way in order to receive her $10,000 prize. When she arrives, she has only $4,900 in her pocket, so she puts her Sterling bike up for auction and gets the missing $100. Then she collects the reward money. But the money isn't actually the main prize. The real prize is the instant publicity. And with that, Annie moves her family to New York and gets a job at the New York World newspaper. She writes columns, including one about her dangerous adventures under the pseudonym New Woman. Surprisingly, the publicity about her unusual journey quickly dies down, even among feminists and even her own family. It's 1947. Annie dies in obscurity at age 74. Her side stories and embellishments, well, they make for great campfire stories. Even her great-grandnephew would later state that she likely concocted the story about the wager just to sensationalize her trip. It was a story she would tell at every single stop. She wasn't the world's fastest cyclist, nor the longest endurance cyclist. But her biking around the world was real. Estimates are that she logged up to 7,000 miles by bike and steamshipped the rest of the route. That in itself is no small feat. So you can draw your own conclusions, but her story is certainly not an average everyday life experience. Well, that's it for today. Thanks for watching and see you next time.